Welcome to the X Podcast, and have my friends with me, Tim and Kevin. How are we doing?
Great, man.
Doing awesome.
How are you doing?
Awesome.
Doing great.
I'm doing well. We're picking up where we left off from last week's episode, part 2. If you didn't hear the news, I'm leaving.
Let's try.
I'm not leaving.
Nice try.
But if you missed out the pickup last
You did
week's
tease something out on your
episode.
social media very recently.
I did. Maybe we'll have to talk about it in one of the...
You did tease something. Is that what you were talking
I
about?
put fun things coming, and I had several people send me group texts. Hey,
Can we at least just say you're not leaving?
I'm not
so
leaving.
you
that
can-
was not the teaser. We'll
What
talk.
are
very
you
good.
doing?
Should we talk about it now or in a few weeks?
We can talk about it in a few weeks.
In a few
We'll
weeks.
talk about it in a few
We'll
weeks.
talk about it in a
Whenever
few
you
weeks.
want.
We can
I
talk
just
about it
assume-
now.
So yeah,
Or we can talk
Some
about it in a
time.
few weeks.
but I'm not
Or we can talk about it
leaving.
now.
We
I'm
can
not
talk about it
leaving.
now.
Or we can talk about it.
Which one? Should we flip a coin?
No.
You two
No.
arm wrestle, and then we'll.
Who wins, then what?
But
I'm putting my money on him.
2 exciting announcements from the last episode. Tim is coming out with his first book.
Yeah.
We're so excited. The title is
Yep.
not
It's not completely done, but working title is
title yet to come.
Yeah.
He was about to say it.
I
Wait.
was- nope.
Say
No.
it.
He was
No.
about to
Drum
say
roll.
it.
You
You
didn't
didn't
even,
listen.
I didn't have to say it in the last episode. It was great. I didn't have to. No. The
What?
title is probably going to be Scary Faith.
Come on with it. Scary Faith. And no one better to write a book about scary faith than you. It's gonna
No
be
one's
awesome.
more scared
And then
than
speaking,
I am. You are right.
and then that just teed me up. I mean, for a softball for Scary Faith, because Kevin is walking in Scary Faith right now. But taking, just honestly though, all joking aside, an incredible step of faith. Stepping away from full-time staff here at the church, stay in the church, stay on the podcast,
Yep.
but just a career switch, and has some incredible things up ahead. So last episode we teased, you have been already kind of, I know the way your brain works, you already got a ton of ideas
I haven't heard this yet.
percolating.
So I'm ready to hear this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so-
I just told you at lunch.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is new news.
But I invited you to lunch.
You did,
so
but
don't
I
act
had
like I
a-
didn't try to
I
tell
had
you.
other. Yeah, me neither.
It's been crazy. Just a quick recap for me. It felt like it was really important when we made the decision to step off of the team, that we didn't have anything lined up. I felt like that was the way that it needed to be done as far as obedience and doing what God called us to do. Like, if we're going to step out in faith, and if that's what this is going to be, then we need to trust Him to bring the next thing at an appropriate time.
Yeah.
So that's how we did it. But, we stepped away and didn't have anything left, even though we wanted, to have, something lined up. But, I think that we had started to talk, okay, well, what's next? We might as well get that in line before we felt convicted to stop that and to trust God in that way. So I hadn't, and I told you guys, when I told you guys I hadn't had a resume or nothing. I had no clue what I was doing. And even, my parents well, what are you going to do next? I'm like, great question. I don't know. Well, you have to, and
Sell Nissans.
right. Shout out to Dad.
Yes. If you need a Nissan, Buckeye Nissan. Ask for Steve Illich.
I drive the crap out of those Nissans. I love those.
My
things.
personal recommendation.
Yeah, you do too.
I
You have a
love
sweet
it,
Nissan.
and I
that
love Steve
thing.
Illich.
He's
the
awesome.
best.
He is
He
one
is.
of my
He's the
favorite
best.
people in the world.
Yeah.
Buckeye Nissan.
Buckeye
.com.
Nissan. I get a referral bonus if you
Your
go.
parents
So
are-
please
they're
make
such
sure you use my name.
encouragers.
They're the best.
They're awesome.
They're the best. I love them. But they are not exempt from my shocking following Jesus moves. So where was I? I felt like, we didn't want to have anything lined up, and so I wanted to make sure I had told the leadership of the church before I had anything lined up. So I went home that day on Wednesday and had a mini panic attack. Maybe not so many. Oh my God, what am I going to do? What did I just do? And grabbed my laptop, hurry up, build a resume, and a personal website. And I'm like, what? I'm not kidding.
Did you build a personal website that night?
In an evening.
Oh, my
I
gosh.
was up till 2
I'm
a.m.
going to go to kevinillich.com right now and
That's
see
not what
I
it
can
is, but it is
find.
cool.
It is that, actually.
It is?
KevinIllich.com.
I'm going
Wait,
there right
I thought
now.
it was .live.
No.
No, it's
KevinIllich.com.
KevinIllich.com. I'm going there
One
right
L.
now.
Listen,
I got
don't
it.
read it because
Whoa, it is you.
I know, but don't
Everybody,
read
go to
don't read it.
kevinillich.com.
read
Looking
it.
for a.
do
Can
not
I?
read
Why
it.
can't I read? Anybody can
Because
read it. It's on the internet.
But I'm shutting
Okay.
it down.
Oh,
I'll tell you what.
Because you already okay.
Listen. So
anyway,
download
resume. Hold on.
Yeah,
wow. Wait, look at this.
I'll change it right after this. So
wait
when
a minute.
This comes out, nobody will know.
How come it says? Okay. I guess it's just the title threw me for
what
associate pastor. I mean, we just don't use those titles, but that's.
Well, okay. So in lieu of me,
why does it say
talking
executive
about
pastor?
Right.
Okay.
It's like a lead pastor.
Yeah. Why does this say? Okay. No, go for it. Sorry, I don't mean. This is new for me.
Yeah.
So
why don't you go and name all the roles that I've had at our church in the last 6 years?
I am sending you a contact right now.
Listen.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I felt very strongly about leaving that way.
Hello.
Yeah.
I want to hire
hijacking this whole thing.
I want to hire you. Send. All right, let me know if you get it.
Okay, Kevin, I'm listening.
Sorry, go ahead.
Listen, me and you will have a conversation.
Yes, I'll just listen.
So, but if you're listening, then my website will be different, but you can go look.
KevinMillich.com.
Yeah, take a lot of that off. So anyway, I'm doing my resume, build my website up till 2 a.m, like freaking out. Like now I got to get a job. Right. That was dumb. And but felt the whole time, while God's speaking to me in all the crazy ways, I feel like He's speaking to me. The whole time, I got the impression that God's like, "What are you doing? Like this."
Just you stepping in the natural, going, "I'm going to figure this out now."
Yeah, the sense was you're doing this to make people feel better that you're looking for a job, but you don't need that. And that was, I was doing it for my own anxiety, not from a place of. And that's just the sense that I got, and the more I'd pray about it, like, God, what does that mean? What? And that's kind of how I pray, like I yell at God, like, what the heck was that? Like, why'd you do that? And so that's just the prevailing sense that I've had, and so I'm shutting that website down for that reason.
It'll be down by the time people hear
this.
Well,
it'll probably be up. It'll just look different.
Okay.
Like I built a website that night in my freakout session for oh my God, I need like a place for my resume to live, and if people want to see more about me. But now I think it's more of just going to be a home for everything that I feel like God's starting, to do. So the one thing that I do feel pretty confident about, and this is what we were talking about at lunch, was and there's a couple things that I'm still building that I'm not going to disclose. I'm not ready to share that yet. But what I can share is I feel very called to like a specific space in society right now, and a specific gap. And we've had conversations about that before, but this gap between people who are struggling with anxiety, depression, or just going through a hard time, and the gap between that space and getting real help. A specific compassion towards people who know or have loved ones who are experiencing those types of things. Yeah. I think we all, through the pandemic and through 2020, whatever, have like either personally experienced a level of anxiety or depression that we've never experienced before, or we definitely know somebody who has, or maybe the worst, somebody who's maybe committed suicide, taking their life. For those people I've shared on this podcast before, people who've never struggled with anything like that, who are checking themselves into psych units at the hospital. I know people who work at these psych units who've heard some of these stories of people who just have had such a difficult time dealing with it. So and we have so much more help now than ever. Yeah. As far as services or as far as people who can provide real relief, whether that be counseling, whether that be some sort of medication or doctors that can help you walk through this or that. But at the same time, there's this very, very real gap. And in my story, I'm so lucky. And I mean this, not just being dramatic or hyperbolic, I am maybe the most blessed person in the entire world as far as a support system when it comes to mental health. And so when I started my journey of going, man, is this depression? Is this what this feels like? And not being able to get out of bed and having this overwhelming sense of doom, every morning when you wake up and thinking not just bad thoughts about yourself, but afflicting thoughts about yourself. When I was feeling that, I had people all around me who were ready, willing, and able, and who had experience getting real help. Yeah. And for me, it still took probably 3 months of feeling that way before I got in an environment that, whether that was the doctor's office or the counselor said, and I'll tell you why. Because I had a couple times worked. And it's hard to describe unless you've been in these situations where taking even the littlest step is like a huge milestone.
Yeah.
And when you're on and when you're high energy and when you're not feeling those things takes nothing. It's like, well, why doesn't that person just get up and do something? It's like because you don't understand what it's like to feel physically afflicted by your mental state.
Yeah.
And so when you say, oh, I just can't get out of bed, it's not just like I'm sad. It almost feels like a spiritual attack on your body of like what even rolling over to look at my phone is a chore. And that's somebody who works out 3-4 times a week and tries to run and tries to pray and tries to, everything. When you've experienced something like that, it's just so gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
And everything you do is really hard. And thank God I wasn't suicidal. Thank God I didn't have thoughts like that. Because if I had, it took me so long to get into an environment where I needed help that for me, that still spooks me to this day that there are people who, that whether they reach out to a church. I've been on the side of being like giving pastoral counsel of like, hey, I'm experiencing these things. What do I do? And I felt even from a spiritual context of limited of here, I can give you a list of counselors that I know and love. And I can pray as hard as I've ever prayed, and I can provide to you what I understand God, how I can provide you my understanding of God's word on this, and we can check in on you, and we can do things like that, and we can drive to your house, and we can do all those things, and that helps. But still, you feel a general helplessness. I've seen firsthand the anguish and the agony of a mother or a father who has a child who has gone through these things. I understand what it's like to be in that position and to reach out for help and to be diverted or fill out an intake form to some random counselor online only for them to either never reach back out to you or for them to call you back and say that they have trouble with your insurance, and so you're going to have to go and actually schedule a doctor's appointment in order to do that because I've understood that. And so then to have to call and schedule a doctor's appointment to go and to get a referral, and you go to the doctor's appointment, and thank God that happened because that was really helpful for me personally. But then to go, man, I will fax it to the doctor's or to the counselor's thing, and when you call the counselor thing another 2 weeks later, they don't, oh, we haven't gotten it yet, and so you have to move on and find another, the weeks pile up and the months pile up, and for people in their worst state, it's just hell is what it is. And so for me, I feel, and at one time I Googled, my daughter's depressed, what do I do? And Google it right now if you don't, and stop watching the podcast, but you can Google my daughter's depressed, what do I do? And when you're a parent or when you have somebody you love, and like I said, we all know somebody. We all want to do something, and we would spend exorbitant amount of money to do something. Just something.
Right.
And my wife, I'm not trying to belabor the point, but my wife, when she was down and out, and we've told this story on this podcast before, but I can remember like the lowest point in my married life, looking at her in the corner of our house having the worst panic attack I'd ever witnessed, when she was despondent in another place, tears, like she wasn't crying, but there were tears rolling down her eyes, with our kids running her, Mommy, are you okay? My 3-year-old going and wiping her tears away, saying it's going to be all right. I can remember thinking, there is nothing I wouldn't spend. There's nothing I wouldn't give up. There's no place I wouldn't move. There is nothing I wouldn't do to help my wife in that moment somehow. And so if you felt that helplessness, you know that there's a need in society for something. And so I Googled, I was like, my daughter, my wife, my son, my mom, my whatever is depressed, what do I do? Or anxious, what do I do? And there's some great things out there. Thank God there's the National Suicide Hotline. But you Google it, you'll have that first thing. And then you'll have about 100 articles that are all the same article, and they're probably helpful, but some version of the 5 ways to talk to your daughter, your spouse, about depression and things, just information, which is great. But I see personally, I feel like God, a couple months ago, really birthed in me like a deep compassion for that, and showed me this gap. And there might be some things, but there is really nothing. There's no service, right? For the person who feels a lack of emotional bandwidth, I'm just not a feeling type of person, or I just can't comprehend, or I feel like there's nothing I can do, or even the best of my intentions don't work or make a difference. I feel really called to that gap and to create and provide services that people can purchase and somehow, some way, begin to slowly and steadily fill that gap for people. Whether that's connecting them with counselors, whether that's connecting them with doctors, whether that's providing encouragement, or whether that's one of the loose ideas that I've been having is providing a almost like a course, like a really affordable course that is almost like a, for me, when I was going through these things, I was really hesitant to say that I needed counseling or to go to a doctor. I waited way too long because I had all of the stereotypes. Like, I had all the stigmas in my head. I knew that if I felt like in my heart, if I took a step to go to a doctor or a counselor, then I was admitting that I was a crazy person and had failed, right?
Yeah.
Or that I was mentally ill. And that was too much to my ego. That was too much to my pride to do that. And so the value for me, or for the hundreds of millions of people probably in the world who feel that way, if somebody were to say, here is some sort of course, okay, with athletes and doctors and pastors and therapists and counselors and normal people advocating that there is real help and that you are not a crazy person, and here's how to get it, and here's what I would do. I think that there might be something like that out there, but I feel pretty specifically that God's leading me towards that space.
Yeah, that's great.
So
that's awesome.
That's where I'm headed. I'm probably going to start. I'm going to start some entity to begin to build that audience and make people aware while I build products. Yeah. So it's going to take some capital to do it, because a lot of it's tech, a lot of it's back end to make things scalable these days. Like, a lot of it's content, but even more of it is just executing the process. And so there's a lot of stuff that I've learned, obviously, doing ministry at such an amazing place, but and I feel specifically equipped for the content part, but the tech part is something that's just going to take some cash. And so so upwards of at least probably $40,000 of capital I'm going to have to find a way to get my hands on in order to execute this the way that I feel like it needs to be executed. So
that's cool.
So cool. I think for we've talked a lot about on this podcast, not being boxed into one thing that you do.
Yeah.
And we've talked about starting things from scratch. We've talked about creativity, and you're just such an innovative person by nature. But I love that, and we also talk about God using your pain. I just think it's cool to watch God use both your pain and your gift of creativity to find. We've had a few conversations about this over the last few months. I never thought about that gap. That really you're forming you're doing a lot more than this, but part of it is that you're forming a bridge between the person who is in that space and all the red tape. That you're right. The last thing you need in the darkest moment of your life, if you finally do muster up enough strength to take a step, is a lot of red tape where you're just like, forget it anyways. So for you to build that bridge, what a powerful niche, what a powerful space to speak into. Yep.
I hope so. There's a couple things that I'll probably be doing in the interim, just to try to find some more footing. I got some web design, some experience that I feel like could be valuable for small businesses and things like that. And so I'm going to try to I think part of it initially will look like, as best as I understand at this point, building an audience to really start to encourage and bring value to their lives, through whatever. Maybe that's a little podcast thing I do or some different types of things like that. And but the other thing probably be just to really, as best as I can, fund that.
Yeah.
And so I'll probably be doing some of that contracting work in order to bring some, resources to build what I hope I spend some considerable time doing. So
That's awesome.
And you already have, you've teased one or two of them, but you have multiple ideas that are honestly really, really cool.
Yeah.
Really unique.
The hard part is not a lot of them exist yet, and so it's not like so I'm building a lot of different mechanisms. I think that'll deliver to certain things, which could be, proprietary, which is cool. But that makes it a little more challenge initially because you got to find the, there's not a whole bunch of people in Columbus, Ohio, like that are doing these types of things, and the people that do them work on a different budgetary. Silicon Valley, there's they don't work with a lot of ministry people, but that's fine. If God's called me to a different a level of thinking, I got to get creative and get there. Yeah. And His will, His bail. But Joel, thank you. So that's what I'm doing. I got some ideas for some. One of the things that has always been inside of me, and I feel like God's laid on my heart, is passion for young people. And there has been they are in so many ways advanced when it comes to understanding the anxiety we deal with. I feel like there's this we talked about it many times on this show, but I feel like older generations aren't equipped at all. Yeah. Younger generations are realizing, they don't know, like what they told me to do, that doesn't work. Yeah. And so they're going to be the innovators. They're going to be the leaders. And right now, I think that maybe there's administrations in schools, local schools, public schools, private schools, whatever, colleges even. There's administrations that are trying to remedy a mental health, emotional health pandemic on its own, without the innovative strategy it's going to take to tackle this new problem. And so I think that I see a future, and I'll probably leave it at this. I see a future of rebranding mental illness.
Love it.
Because for me, I thought, and it's nobody's fault, it's what I picked up through in the environment, that when I felt depressed, I mean, I look back, I'm like, I had every reason to feel the way I felt, with my certain context in that. I wasn't sick. I'm not sick. When you look at yourself and you're like, I'm ill. Because you have anxiety does not mean you are ill. You're not. Yeah. But it's just like if I were to throw my wife under the bench press and to tell her to, all right, let's get 10 reps at 315. She would hurt herself. And in a lot of ways, we find ourselves in situations in life that we are just not fit for.
Yeah, it's good.
Not that you can't be, but you learn through failure. When I'd work out with you, what do we do? You go to failure, and that's how you grow. Yeah. And so for some reason, when it comes to mental and emotional health, if you fail, you're sick. Yeah. But with physical health, if you fail, you're growing. And so what if we could rebrand how we taught our young people about mental and emotional well-being? And what if we could create things that would be actual help and programs and things for administrations and teachers and because this is true too. I think all of us have had dark days, but not everybody has experienced bouts with depression and anxiety. And that's fine. Yeah. But we live in a world where people are trying to affect young people and to teach students and lead students and the next generation are genuinely passionate about it. I do think you cannot effectively do that without an understanding of it. Yep. and without a real way to help and frame and be there and counsel and no longer are the days where we have some great counselors, school counselors that their heart is there, but honestly, you got 3 or 4 counselors to a school of 1,200. Like, good luck.
Right.
Everybody that works in a school building is a counselor. You'll find yourself counseling.
Well, I think you also alluded to something. How do you break the stigma for even young people that I don't want to go talk to the counselor?
Yeah.
Because then something's wrong with me.
You know,
that's just an ongoing battle that I think is something else that you mentioned. That's just real. And so when you have the stigma of you're ill, you're sick, something's wrong with you. I do think one of the strides that we've made in the conversation around mental illness, or say emotional health, is that, and I know our church has tried for years, is to remove the stigma and to say that like you said, like, you're not broken, you're battling with something, and so I think the good news is, I think for the younger generation, is that I feel like that stigma is waning. It's really starting on the decline. Probably, unfortunately, because anxiety and depression is on the incline, and so many more of them are experiencing it than ever before in this latest generation. And so I think it's cool. I think one of the things that I hope that maybe people can take away from this episode, just to take it a step further, I love the fact that what you feel called to step out of, and really feel like the moment you made the decision by faith to do that God started to bring even more ideas and clarity, vision to your life. But I remember when I was sitting there with you on that Wednesday, and I remember telling you, I said, if you spend the next 30 years of your life building some business or brand and becoming really successful financially, but you don't build God's kingdom, I said, it's going to be the greatest regret of your life. And I remember also just saying to you, you were called to build God's kingdom. And what I guess I wanted to say is that I think for a long time in the Christian world, that we have these really, really small boxes that we put people in. And it's like, okay, if you're going to make a difference for God, then that means you need to go to Bible school and you need to go to ministry. And I feel like you can maybe make a much greater impact outside of the church. I try to tell people that all the time in the church, because I think everybody thinks, well, you're a pastor, so I guess you have purpose. I'm an accountant, so I don't. Or I'm a teacher. I'm just like, no, like, you get to be in the trenches with the people that need that hope more than I do during the day. I have to fight for it. I have to go to a gym. I have to, like, you are in it. And people are paying you to be in it. Like, you have a mission field right where you are. You can make a difference. And that's part of building God's kingdom. It's a broader sense than just this small little box. And I think even when it comes to people in ministry, I think there's a box that's like, okay, well, you're a pastor. That's what you do.
Right.
It's like, well, what if God made me to be more than that? What if I'm that, and I'm also a phenomenal musician who can write music and this whatever. That's not even, maybe it's not even music that's used in the church. What if I'm an artist? What if I'm an author? What if I'm a entrepreneur? What if I'm a fashion designer? As one of the pastors that we love and follow is, and I think I love, even though you're stepping out of the ministry to really put yourself wholeheartedly into it, I feel like there's still ministry in it. There's something behind it. You've seen a great need that I think we in the church are constantly trying to reach, because at the end of the day, people need encouragement and they need help, but they need hope. And I think, if you can take that heart and how God's changed your life and bring it to an arena that might reach tons more people than our church may ever reach, and it's a way to bring hope to people, and as we've had conversations a little bit about the idea of maybe even being able to lead people toward God that are in that kind of place, even if it's in a secular environment, but opportunities for it. Like I would just want to challenge anybody that's listening to this that has this really, really traditional mindset that you're, okay, so what are you? I'm just a this. I'm a mom. Okay, that's awesome. Maybe no greater calling than to be a mom.
Right.
All right, I had one. But you could be a mom and you could be inspired by God and have experience in your life where you can go, but I also feel like I can do this and I can change the world.
Yeah.
What we don't need is for Kevin to step into something to add just another product so that you can make money, maybe solve a problem. I mean, that's great. And if you can do that and you solve a problem for people, that is great. But maybe what we do need, what the kingdom of God needs, is Kevin to maybe go step into this space so that he can affect people and lead them hopefully closer to Jesus in an environment that maybe you would never be able if you stayed on staff.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see where God takes it, and I want to blow up that mindset that you're a one-hit wonder, you're a one-type, like you are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah.
How complex we are, Psalm 139 says.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to kind of break out of that shell
Yeah.
a little bit and say, I want to be all that God
Yeah.
has put within me and created within me to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that all looks like. And again, as I talked about, like being an author wasn't something I thought about when I stepped into going into ministry, but I feel God leading me to do that. I don't know what else God might lead me to do. I know that I'm planted here and I want to pastor here for the rest of my life if God allows me to. You know? I know that's something that I'm very called to, but I don't want to limit it to just that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I might make the next electric motorcycle. They actually do have an electric motorcycle. I'm not working on it, but I'm just saying, don't box me in. The world needs electric motorcycles.
Yeah. I need a Tesla.
I need an electric motorcycle. I need a Tesla
Yeah.
too.
Cybertruck.
And so, so don't box me in.
It's so good.
I'm excited for you though.
Yeah, we're excited for you. I mean, the ideas and everything you're speaking is so needed and it's so fresh. And the world needs more of your mind. The world needs more of how you think and the level at which you think and your heart. And
Can I also I want to pause for one thing because I didn't get to say this last time, and so maybe we can put it as an addendum to it. The one thing that I'm going to miss the most about having you on staff, and I want to have it said because I didn't feel like I just didn't in the last one. I didn't get a chance, and I just thought about it now. And I said this to you, is like I'm not going to miss, and I don't think we as a staff are going to miss as much the things you do for this organization, because you do a lot and your hands are in so many different things, whether it's creatively, stuff that people see and don't even realize you're behind. I think we're going to miss more who you are, and I guess it's the intangibles that you bring. It's the mind, the intellect.
Yeah.
You're one of those people that whenever we sit down and talk about something, yes, you're an Enneagram 8. Yes, you're the antagonist. Yes, you're the challenger. Yes, you're that.
Yes.
But you also
I'm sorry.
you also that's what made us better, was that you think differently, and you approach problems differently, and you come to things that are the fresh perspective and a different way of seeing things than maybe everybody in the room is. That's kind of what you always did, and that is something that I think made us better. Iron sharpens iron. Like, that's the thing that makes it. And so I think that's what I'm going to miss. But at the same time, I think I've told you, it's like, you're also such a unique, you're an enigma when it comes to the way you work, the way you think, the way you innovate, the way you do this, that I also feel like it might be to the detriment to box you into. It's been hard to sometimes find the exact role for you. You bounced around from. You've tried them all, but I think that's not based on a weakness. I think that's based on the wiring. That's based on who you are and how God made you and the way you think. And so I think we'll look back as much as we're sad and we're grieving. It's like, I don't want you to leave, and the impact it'll have. We may end up looking back on this 5 years from now, 10 years from now, going, I'm so glad you did not stay, in this predefined little ministry role or this particular pastoral role are all important, but you are wired in a way that maybe you need to be unleashed to go and create something new that could impact thousands or more, tens of thousands or millions. And that, I guess, is the part that is the unknown that you're stepping into, that I'm hopefully watching and going, okay, God, what are you going to do with him?
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to see. So I'm 100% behind you in supporting you to take your step away, not because we want it. We do not. I mean, trust me, this is not an internal thing. It's not a struggle. It's not. We're having the greatest season of ministry we've ever had in this church.
Yeah.
We're having the most fun.
Yeah.
We're enjoying this time, and we haven't always been able to say that.
Right.
Like, we are loving what we are doing right now, and God is doing phenomenal things. But I see it in you, and I see it's like, okay, take him out of the box, and that's, I think, what's going on. So.
I love you guys, man. This
Yeah.
is I don't know how to respond to that other than I told you all this already, but you're still my pastor. And you too. But not everybody gets the privilege to see what you guys do so closely. And I've been privy to see you through the hardest things I could ever imagine, the most public things I could ever imagine anyone ever going through. And I think I'd be amiss to relate to the church that what I've seen up close, and even things like what I'm now walking through, if there's one takeaway I have that everybody needs to know, is that you are so trustworthy. I trust you in my life. I still do. I trust you to pastor my kids, and I trust you to pick the people to lead the people who lead my kids, and I trust you to. I trust that even if you make a mistake, you made the best mistake that you could possibly make, and you take this. There is nobody who cares more about integrity than you do. And who has, I don't know, and I'm really not saying this just to stroke you, like I said, but if you're a part of this church, like, not every church is for everybody, and so there's that. But what we have is somebody who I trust so much, the Jesus in you, in every situation I've seen you, and you're not perfect. I'll tell everybody that right away, but you are serious about following Jesus, and you're serious about not just the church but God's kingdom, and that is hard to find, and that is something I can throw my entire weight behind, and so much of God's used you in the ministry you've built, and everybody here that you brought here to, like, my life's different. My life, I was telling you at lunch, like, I'm not sure if every single season of my life walking away from ministry, I feel like I could trust my relationship with Jesus enough to keep my integrity even. I know it's weird maybe for you to hear, but this church has matured me. It's grown me up. Like, this is really my only real job. I mean, secretly, nobody's supposed to know that. But wow, this is the best experience of my life, and I walk out of it. I step down from it, legitimately having a higher view of my leadership. More in love with ministry than I've ever been. And I say that going, man, I have confidence in the next season because I don't know if there's anything harder than what we do here. To sell the message of Jesus to a lost world. And to, not to get into details, but, like, you guys, everybody thinks it's, let's sit around and pray. And if you've never sat across from a grieving wife and grieving children and been the representation of Jesus in that room, if you've never been in the room with a couple who is at the brink of divorce, and you're counseling them and saying, no, you, sir, you need to step up and do this. No, you, ma'am, you need to step up and do this. And until you've seen people in that, until you've had to do that, until you've had to prepare a message for lost people every single week for how many weeks in a row, until you've had to answer God's call to build a $13 million building in the middle of a pandemic, after the biggest staff transition you've ever had to do. Go buy your book. When is it?
Yeah.
But my point is, this is hard.
Yeah.
This is hard stuff.
Yeah.
And I have confidence in this next season because I know that I've been forged in a space that you guys have kind of led the way.
No, that's cool.
And
Well, thank
I'm
you.
just
Love
forever
you
grateful.
so much. Love you.
It's mutual.
Mm.
I ain't going nowhere.
Right.
You'll see me.
Thank you for joining this conversation
Yeah.
today. And can't wait to see what the future holds. So wherever you have been tuning in from, thanks for being a part of just these moments with us. And send us all your thoughts at podcast@thex.church, wherever you're tuning in from. Love for you to leave a review, rate, subscribe if you're not already. And until next time, hope you have an incredible, incredible week.